In this video, we're going to take a look at how to do some basic editing in the timeline in Adobe Premiere. In the last episode, we looked at how to open up a new project and import content. In this one, we have to make a sequence to drop our content into to start editing. I'm going to go to my source panel. And the first way that I like to edit when I begin is to choose a clip to work with. And it's important to pay attention to the size and the settings of your video because you may have several different sources available, and you want to look at in the project panel. If you slide over here, and I've kind of expanded the workspace a little bit, you can find the video info that shows us what size it is. Now, somewhere here it should also show the frame rate. I have yet to find where that is, but it does show me the dimensions in pixels. So all the footage we shoot with our cameras here is generally 1920 by 1080. But you may also include video from your phone or from other camera sources. So always take a look and decide which source you want to use. And for us at the high school, it's usually going to be 1920 by 1080. So we'll use this as our setting. So we'll start from there. And there's two ways to make a sequence. Well, let's just make the easy way. We'll show you the hard way first and the easy way second. So if I'm down here in my project panel and I look at this button here, it says new item. And I'm going to click on the new item button and choose sequence. Now, the reason this is the hard way is because you actually have to choose which settings to use. And what we're looking for is something that's got 1920 by 1080, 29.97. It works on a frame rate, but the footage we're using, I'm pretty sure, is in the range of 60 frames per second. So you sort of have to look through here. It's kind of a pain in the neck to me. Let's see if I can find something that fits. So there's 30, 60 frames a second. No, it's 30. Looking at these 1920. So this works. I can use this setting. This is AVCHD. I'm not sure what those letters mean. So there's all these different formats in here, and you have to know which one you want to use. Now you can actually change your settings by going to the settings panel and adjusting your settings here. So you can choose a time base, and 29.97 works pretty good. Always use square pixels. Display format might be here in frames, or there's different ways to display. And this actually doesn't affect the footage, but it does affect the way the timeline displays in the sequence panel. Then there's the sample rate. The sample rate is the audio, and then down here is the part we care about, which is the dimensions in pixels. So these are all important things that you can change here if you can't find what you're looking for. So if I do that, I'm now going to get, if I hit enter, you can't really see it on the screen, but there's actually a button on there that says accept or okay or something like that. So here's a sequence, and that works reasonably well. And the one thing I do want to do before I get too busy is I want to folderize my content. So I've got a sequence up here, and it's a good idea to name your sequences. I like to number them, so maybe the 01 is my main sequence, and I might just type the word main in there. So it's important to organize. And all these other pieces are clips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the new bin button, and I'm going to drop all of my clips. And notice that these icons next to them are different. The sequence icon is different than the clip icon. So I'm going to drop all the sequences in here. Shift and click, and now I can just drag all those into one bin. So now they're organized. And the more content that you have, the more essential it is that you organize your content. There we go. So now I've got some clips I'm working with. And in my sequence, let me just get rid of the sequence actually. So my other way of doing a sequence is, and I find this much easier, is if I've identified previously the size that I want to work with. So here's my 1920 by 1080. And if we've got that to work with, then I'm going to collapse this back again. And I can actually just pre-edit something up here. So if I double click, I want to find an interview sequence or interview clip, which I have in here somewhere, I'm sure of it. Okay, here we go. Here's the interview. So this is an interview with a guy that used to work here, and he's now at the county. And so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to edit this down. So let's assume I paid attention to what he was saying, and I want to start here, and I'm going to end here. So I'm pre-editing the clip that I opened up from the project panel. So you can use these in-point and output buttons. This button here goes go to in-point. This is go to out-point. We can go back here and play it and check it. You can identify what works. So those are the pieces that get the job done. And I'm going to take this clip and just drag it straight down into my sequence panel. When I've done that, it makes a sequence that matches the settings of the clip itself. So the size, the frame rate, everything will be exactly the same. That's a pretty good idea to start with, as long as you've picked a clip that is representative of the right settings. So there's that. So once I'm in my sequence, I can actually start cutting this up in a couple of different ways. One is to choose the razor tool, and the shortcut for that is C right here. So if I click on the shortcut, and I use shortcuts because it's faster than constantly going back and forth. So I'm going to use that tool, and I'm going to cut, and move over, and I'm going to cut again. So assuming I paid attention to what was in there, I can then take them out. And then I'm going to get the selection tool, and the shortcut is V. So I can switch back and forth between C and V, and you can see it's going back and forth. And I just keep my hand on the keyboard all the time to switch back and forth between those two tools to get what I want. It's faster. So I click this one, delete it, and if I want to collapse the space in there, I can double click and delete that space. So that works great. It's the thing I just recently found out about. Another way of editing, a third way of editing, is to edit by grabbing the endpoint, and you'll notice my cursor changes. So I can collapse this down this way or this way and move my clips around. Now, my personal method is when I'm editing video, I like to stagger my edits, which means up and down on these two pieces to identify where the cuts are. So if I cut this here again, and I take this other one and put this down here, then it can show me where the edits are. It's not mandatory, of course. It's not necessary. For me, it's just a habit I picked up visually because I can see better where the edits are. And that's kind of how that works. Now, when it comes to B-roll, I've got some B-roll up here, I think. So, all right, so if I've got this piece here I want to use, let me just pre-edit this by clicking on here, and I'm going to drag that into place. So here's my B-roll, and I use that to cover my edits up so you can't see that I changed the shot. One important trick to know also is when you're editing video in the timeline, that sometimes if you're zoomed out all the way, your clips may be sort of minute and small. So you can actually zoom in on this, and you can actually use this bar down here to move back and forth in your timeline. And this helps you see smaller increments. And so here now I'm looking at from there's like 6 seconds, and it looks like it's you can zoom in quite a ways and really identify. And the purpose here is you can work a little bit more finely. If you're zoomed out, your movements, a little bit moves a long ways. And if you want to have more minute movement and more fine control over your process, then moving a little bit gets you better results. In addition to this, when you're zoomed in this far, you have a better sense of where the tracks and the audio change up and down. So as it moves up and down here, you're going to have a better sense of where the audio picks up and stops based on the peaks that you see in the sound wave. So those are some basics about how to edit video. 3 different methods. One is to review in the pre-editing in the source panel and dragging it down. And one is to use the razor tool and the selection tool. And the third method, of course, is to just grab the endpoint and move it back and forth. And that's 3 ways to edit in Premiere. Have fun.